Smartphones and the internet shape how young people interact, but the invisible conversations are hard for parents to manage.
A new book called They'll Be Okay is a cheat sheet for parents covering everything from sexting to selfies and how to deal with digital dilemmas.
Psychologist, qualified teacher and author of They'll Be Okay, Collett Smart, joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And why do parents find it so difficult to come up with sort of, and it's across a lot of generations too, particular topics?
I think parents are more involved than ever, to be honest. Parents find parenting hard, but they want to have the tricky topics with their kids. I'm a mum of 3 kids. 2 of mine are older teens, and I think parenting is one of the most wonderful but one of the biggest challenges I've ever done in my life. Parents are saying to me, we want to have these conversations, but how? How do we have them? What do we say? And if we do have them, do our kids want to even hear from us anyway, especially our teenagers? Yes. The exciting news is that there's so much research to say that teenagers actually want to hear about the big topics from their parents. So we've just got to step up a little bit.
That's good. Okay, because it is a whole new world out there. So let's start with some advice. The dangers of social media. How should mums and dads address this?
So in each of my conversations, I actually say we need to start with the positives. If we just come out with the negatives, we actually shut down the conversations. Then we become irrelevant to our kids. So talking about the fun and the communication in social media, I even say to parents, don't give your kids such a hard time when they're taking selfies. Just because your child is taking a selfie doesn't make them a narcissist. There's a lot of body language and facial communication that's happening through a selfie. Obviously, there's the shadow side, so we must talk about that. We talk about privacy settings. So when our early teens get their first social media accounts, we help them set up privacy settings. We know their passwords of our younger children and our teenagers. Not to snoop, but just like we don't put our teenagers in front of a car, they've got to take a whole year to learn to drive before they sit behind that wheel on their own. When we hand over devices, we've got to give them skills to navigate this world.
Yep. What about topics like body image?
Body image is a big one. It's not just girls. Boys struggle with body image just as much. We've seen surveys come out of the UK where boys are actually quite shocked when they realised how much men's and boys' bodies are changed on media and social media. They've thought it's only girls. So boys are worried about six-packs and all sorts of issues. How do we model our own body image to our kids? How do we talk about ageing? How do we talk about our bodies? Our kids are absorbing a lot of that language about what's an acceptable body by what we say to them.
Good point. Sex.
So, on that topic, I think if we start with our children by mid-primary, they should already be covering, parents should be covering that topic, but we go right back to toddlers where how are we talking about body parts? Are we naming genitalia using the correct terms so that those words don't become taboo in our homes? But then once they become teenagers, if you've never had the conversation, it's going to feel clunky to start with. But Harvard research tells us our young people, many of them have never had a conversation about what it means to be an ethical person in a relationship, or what consent even means. We must step up for these conversations. They want to know from us about love. Talk about love education. That's where we can start.
Yeah. Your best bit of advice for parents today?
I think that the main things are, don't stop talking to your children. It's not a one-off conversation that we have once. It's ongoing. Keep having the conversations. Even when it's tricky and difficult, we push through those times. We find times and ways to connect to our children and with our children that are meaningful to them, that speaks their language.
Yep. I always found with my kids, it's not necessarily the message, it's how you communicate with them. I found the car.
Absolutely,
driving them to netball or football.
Yes.
For really important things, I would write them an email.
Yep.
So it's in writing that they've got something to consider and think about rather than just be verbal.
Sending your kids a text, that's their language. Use their modes of communication.
Collett, you're a very smart woman. Come back and see us soon. It's fascinating.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
See you soon.